My name is Kamal Bewar. I work here at the Salai Community College as a financial aid advisor. Today's topic is going to be understanding and supporting unique struggle of the immigrant students at SLIC. So the first topic is, I want to let you know, immigrants versus refugees, along with the international students, there are two different things. A lot of misconception is around here, and I see that pretty much, throughout the college. International students are totally different than when it comes to immigrants and refugees. Immigrants and refugees are a part of the community. Basically, they're part of this community and they intend to stay here. But international students are not. International students are visiting and they have only one purpose here, to finish their degree and move on and go back to their own countries, in most cases. So the challenges community college faces academically, that's number one I want to talk about. Academic guidance is critical when it comes to immigrants and refugees. The reason is, these immigrants and refugees, they come from different backgrounds and they have experienced different higher educational system. So for instance, where I'm coming from, Iraq, our educational system is totally different. The reason is because education, it's a right, but it's a privilege at the same time. Therefore, if you do not have a good grades, the top tiers of the education, for instance, medical or engineering, it will not be part of your destiny if you don't have a good grades. So that's number one. When students come into the United States and come into our college, it's critical to tell them how we can guide them, how we can support them in the way to process and in the way to pursue their educational goal. Throughout my educational pursuing, I've seen so many different challenges faced by my friends, colleagues, and other immigrants. However, that's why it's critical to, as an advisor, whether you're an academic advisor, to guide them to the right direction. So give them a choice. Most of the time, they don't have a choice what to pursue for educational goals. And the other thing is, I see most of the time when we talk about financial aid awareness. Financial aid awareness, it's really critical. You might know or might not know, educational system in most of the Middle Eastern countries are free. You don't pay for education. Education is provided by the government in most cases. And again, it's a right. However, it's a privilege, and you have to have a good grades in order to aim for top tiers again. So when we have students coming as a refugee or immigrant, we asking them to apply for financial aid, for instance. This is something new. This is something new we have to understand. This is something, it's a cumbersome and challenging. When I have students coming to me, they said, what I need to do in order to get a financial aid support. Well, yeah, that's why it's critical when it comes to FAFSA, when it comes to all the requirement by the government. When we want a tax return, we want so many different paperwork. And that's something we have to remind them. Even though where you come from, the education and higher education, post-secondary education was provided freely and you didn't have to go through that. But here it's different. So I think the other thing is, I want to mention, one of the students came to me probably about 6 months ago. He came to me and said, Ustaz, about 2 months ago, I applied for financial aid, FAFSA, through CCS. CCS is Catholic Community Services. And he said, I registered. When I registered and they told me, you're good to go, everything is paid for it. So when I look at the screen, I had so many questions. Okay, so tell me, how could you support that type of students if you don't have a financial aid background? So that's why it's critical to tell them. I told them, there's what needs to be done. There are tons of the paperwork needs to be done in order to get your financial aid. So that's number one. It's critical to tell them what we need to do and what we have to do and what the students has to do in the process of the financial aid. The other thing is I want to talk about, most importantly, it's cultural awareness. A lot of people think Middle Easterns are homogeneous, but Middle Easterns are, it's variants and very different background, culturally and religious wise as well. We have Christians, we have Muslims, we have Yazidis, we have Jews, we have Armenians, we have so many different type of religions exist in the Middle East. And we have, as far as the nationality goes, we have, the majority are Arabs, we have Persian, we have Kurds, we have Turks, we have different type of nationalities. And when you interact with the students, it's critical to understand how we can interact with that population. One day, I had a family coming to me and helping them with financial aid. Father was coming with 2 daughters and his son. Throughout the whole process, it probably took me 2 months to fulfill the whole requirement for that family. The whole time, I was trying to help these his siblings and his daughters and his son, but he was re-emphasizing on he was in charge. But I pointing out one thing as his name was Assam. Assam, we need to let your daughter or your son be in charge of his own destiny, and let them to deal with that kind of paperwork or do this, choose their own educational goal. So, I mean, this is something, it's not unusual you will see when you interact with that particular group of population. So, and the other thing is when it comes to women, and most of the time we see if a woman wearing hijab, it's critical to understand you have to be very careful how to interact with that family or with that woman. Personally, I would never shake the hands of that woman unless she extends her hands, shaking her hands and welcoming. So that's one thing. And going back to that family, these 2, especially his 2 daughters, they were, throughout the whole process, I was trying to make them involved in the process and talk to me. And Dad was interrupting, and I was going back and forth. So this is critical when we interact with that particular group and know your proximity. You know you're sensitive about that culture. And the other thing is, I have seen people mentioning, well, all the Middle Eastern are Muslims. Stereotype, right? And we see that a lot. For most of the time, when I talk and I introduce myself, oh, you're Muslim and you're from Middle East. Well, yes. Oh, you're Arab. No, I'm not. And I don't know if anybody seen Maz Jobrani. He has a very funny video when it comes to that, how we can stereotypically talk about that Middle Eastern culture as a one homogeneous culture. We don't understand how vast that culture is in the Middle East. Even religion, when it comes to Islam, we have Shia and Sunni. We don't understand that. And there is a little bit difference, but at the same time, when you interact with a person from Iran, it's different a person from Iraq. When you're interacting with a person from Saudi Arabia, it's different than a person from Afghanistan. So we can't generalize that kind of interaction with our people. So I want to tell you, students, when facing challenges in our college, number one, I don't know if you're aware of acculturation theory. Acculturation theory, it's a process. And most of these group, let's say this group is, whether it's a refugee or immigrants, they go through that process. They're still trying to adapt to the new environment. They're still trying to go through that process, whether it be their words and berries talking about assimilation, integration, or marginalization or separation. So these four processes are critical when we see students. Students are facing one of this process. Doesn't matter. Integration is a great process, but not all students will face and carry that theory to be successful in our college or universities. The reason is you like to become a bicultural, be multicultural competence in your surrounding, in your environment. But when you choose assimilation, you want to dive in. So students will carry, again, different process. But for some, will choose marginalization or separation. These two can be difficult for students. The reason is not because voluntarily they choose these two theories or process, because they're being marginalized by the mainstream. In our college or universities, they don't see any hopes to get help throughout the process. I will tell you, many occasions throughout my educational pursuit, I faced that. But I chose to be persistent. I chose to pursue my dreams, and nothing could stop me. But do you see that? That persistent in every student? It's impossible. As a result, I've seen so many friends, Middle Eastern friends, some of them could not make it because there was no support, no good guidance. Good guidance, whether it's academic, whether it's financial, whether it's social support. So it's a duty of each of us at Salt Lake Community College to support students to pursue their educational goals. Whether it's in the process of trying to integrate that person into the mainstream of the society, at the same time prevent or keep their own cultural and language rights at the same time. Because assimilation, you want to assimilate, but most of the people will choose integration. Integration, you keep in your own culture, but at the same time, you want to be a valuable individual in the society and be a productive individual in the process. As we know, education is the most valuable process and most valuable element in order for us to achieve our societal goals. Whether it's economic, whether it's a societal, whether it's a position, whatever it is. But if we want to be vital, we must have education. So, and I think the immigrants and refugees, what they face, they need each of us support. Each of us how to, I think the best thing to do is to listen. To listen, because most of refugees and immigrants, they've been through a process, whether it's a persecution, whether it's a displacement, whether it's being abused by the government, their origins. So they have that fear in the process. No matter how hard you try, but you have to make sure that's not the same process here as what you saw before. So I think at Salai Community College, the other thing I see a lot of students facing is, beside that cultural difficulty and challenges, language barrier. Language barrier is another thing we have seen students facing. If we don't support them, they will be intimidated and they will abandon their educational dreams. I can give you tens of the examples I have seen throughout my last 26 years in the United States, especially in Utah. People didn't have, whether, I think sometimes what I see as a public institution, when we have trained individual and compassionate person to support that type of, we're talking about immigrants and refugees, but anybody, to show your compassion, to show your support to that individual, trust me, it's critical. As Gandhi says, when you help one person, you help in the whole world. I think when you have fulfilled one person's dream, you change the whole life of the family, not that individual by himself. So to me, language is another, you cannot separate it from the culture. Because if you learn the language, you have to learn the culture as well. As Chomsky says, these cannot be separated, inseparable. So these two things we have, how to be competent culturally and linguistically. It's critical to have students, because I've seen students fearing to write one sentence. They studied in Kurdish, they studied in Arabic, they studied in Farsi, they studied so many different languages. When they integrate into this new society in English, it's another difficulty and another challenges they're facing. So without further ado, I think if you guys have any questions, please feel free.